This week on the Media Corps Minute Podcast, I sit down with Joel House, the president of the Crosse Sign Group. We dive into what it's like to develop team members, how an EOS operating system can help optimize and run your business better, and what it's like to take personal experiences and bring it into the professional field. Stay tuned. You're going to enjoy this one. So Joel,
Yeah.
how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Doing good.
Good.
I forgot what day it was.
Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday?
Tuesday.
And I was gone. We were in Eau Claire all day yesterday.
Okay.
I just had meetings up there, and I actually saw your guys' location in Eau
Oh,
Claire.
good. Yeah.
And we drove by. I'm like, oh, like I knew they were in Eau Claire, but I'd never seen their
Yeah.
spot. So,
Yeah. By the airport over there.
yep.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Well, hey, just before we kind of really get into different things, can you give listeners the quick, what is La Crosse Sign Group?
Yeah. So La Crosse Sign Group, we specialize in external electrical signage. So we do everything. But I always say if we got to put a bucket in the ground for a foundation, or we got to do any large scale engineering type sign work, that's where we make the most sense for our customers and clients. But we do everything across the board. So custom manufactured signs is what we're about.
Yeah. How long has the company been around?
So over 100 years.
Yeah.
So we've been around, I believe, in 1917.
Okay.
So that would be 107 years?
That's wild.
Yeah. So it started in La Crosse and just people who hand lettered and hand painted.
Yep.
And I believe Theodore Schultz was the person who started the company back then.
Okay.
And it's kind of been sold a couple times. And so our most recent owner, he bought it in 1988.
Wow.
And so it used to be a part of a billboard company.
Okay. Yeah.
And he bought the commercial side of that business.
Oh, it kind of split.
And kind of split it. So
Interesting.
what La Crosse Sign Group is today is from that purchase in 1988. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's great.
pretty cool.
That's great. And how long have you been the president of that?
Just been 2 years this month.
Right on.
Yeah,
And how's it been so far?
learned a lot.
Yeah.
I think any new position you take on, you learn quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the industry. It's such a fun industry to be a part of, and we have such wonderful people.
Yeah.
Inside the company, and it's fun going to work with those people, and we just have such a diverse group.
Yep.
So you have installers, you have fabricators, you've got sales teams and project management teams, and everything that it takes to designers, anything from the front end all the way to the back end.
Right.
And I enjoy trying to make that work in harmony.
Yeah.
I think
How does
that's a lot
everything
of fun.
connect? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Try to eliminate silos and make sure that we're working well for ultimately our clients. So
Because you guys do some interior stuff too, don't you?
we
A little
do.
bit?
Yeah. We'll do interior work as well. Again, if it's custom,
Yep.
that's where we make the most sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like it. Now, how many locations you guys have?
So we have 3 physical locations. So we have an office in Eau Claire. We have an office in Madison, and then La Crosse, actually on Alaska.
Okay.
Right off of I-90. So
Yep.
we have 3 locations. We do all our heavy fabrication, manufacturing in La Crosse.
But you kind of serve and sell in a lot of different
We do.
markets, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we have sales teams that are in, the Rochester market,
Yep.
go all the way to the cities, kind of the greater Midwest. Kind of like we were talking earlier,
Yeah.
it's like your clients will end up
Yeah,
taking
they just
different places. And so we'll happily do that. I mean, we were in Iowa last year. We'll be in Georgia this year, and we were up in the UP last year as well. So we get around, if our customers and clients need us to.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, kind of the greater Midwest, all of Wisconsin, northern Iowa, and into northern Illinois, and then western Minnesota.
Okay.
So,
What do you think just kind of makes you guys stand out as a sign company?
I think it's our approach to how we look at projects. For the longest time, our tagline, if you will, was "make a statement."
Okay.
Right, and so when we when I took over as president, I thought through that, kind of make a statement and what does that mean today
Right.
for us? And so what we did is we kind of took that mission and vision into a phrase that says we make a statement by how we take care of each other, our customers, and our community. And so where does that come from? From our perspective, like team members, right? We got to take care of each other as a team so we can serve our customers. And if we're serving our customers well, our community is going to benefit. So kind of this inside-outside approach. And so I know I didn't directly answer your question, but we want to help customers make a statement with their first impression, right? A lot of businesses or cities, municipalities, you have one shot when someone's driving by your business to get an idea or an impression of who you are. And so we want to make sure we make really creative, high-quality signage that speaks to who you're trying to market to with your customer. So that's the goal for us is how can we help our customers be successful? And if we can help them be successful, well, then we'll be successful too.
I like that you added the context on to that tagline to really, that's what truly explains it then, because if it's too vague, then it's like up in the air. Like what does this actually mean? And
so we're all making a statement every day of the week, good or bad. We're making a statement, right? And so whether you take it from a leadership perspective, like I've got to make a statement every day with how I carry myself and how I treat people, and do I call people on or am I a jerk? Like stuff like that. So that's how I look at it internally is, how can I internalize this to make sure I'm making a statement, I think we all want to make a positive impact. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do just through signage.
Well, I'm excited to kind of dive into some of that a little bit more, but I'm curious about kind of your background. Like where'd you kind of grow up? What's your story a little bit?
Yes, I grew up in Winchester, Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a hick. I'm kidding. But no, I grew up in Winchester. My dad was in sales, so we moved around quite a bit. But grew up in Winchester, graduated high school in the La Crosse area.
Okay, yep.
And then I got a job at La Crosse Sign right after high school.
Oh, so you've been in La Crosse and the company for a while then?
No.
Okay.
I left. I'll tell you a little story about that. But my parents, good Midwestern or whatever values you would think, but graduate high school, my parents were like, okay, you got this summer before you go off to college. You're not in school. You have to have a full-time job.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, geez, how am I going to get a full-time job? Well, I knew someone who owned the company, and so I reached out and I'm like, hey, like, can I get a job? So I scrapped signs.
Okay.
So any old signs we would take down, I would scrap signs and just kind of do general labor. So I'd show up, sweep the floors, take out the trash, and then go to the shop supervisor and say, hey, what do you got for me today? And
what's next?
He would run through it. And the funny thing about it is, you're 18, you don't know, but I remember saying to myself, boy, I'm never coming back into this place. And, well, it's funny how life works out, right?
That's great.
So,
that's great.
Yeah, ended up coming back in 2013. And so I've been with the company now for just about 10 years.
So what drew you back?
So I knew the family who owned the company for a while, and so I actually married in to the family.
Okay.
And my father-in-law reached out to me and was like, why don't you come work for us?
Absolutely.
And Audra and I were dating at the time, my wife. And at the
you were dating when
we were dating.
When he said come back. That's risky.
Yeah, and so I was thinking
if it didn't work out, that would
I was in the Air Force at the time.
Okay.
But I was on the Air National Guard side, and I had some time, but I'd have deployments, stuff like that. But so Audra and I were dating. He's like, we talked about coming back and working for him, and I thought, well, I don't know, how this is going to work.
Yeah.
But obviously, it worked out all right.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what'd you kind of do when you came back then?
Yeah, I started out in shipping and receiving, so I loaded signs, and then I started just doing other things.
Yeah.
I think I just started to raise my hand a lot and didn't say no to anything, and so ended up
start working in different positions.
Yeah, working in different positions, and had a lot of energy and just put a lot of energy towards whatever I could do.
Yep.
And so, yes, I did that. Then eventually got into purchasing, and then got into did a handful of things inside of operations when I was in purchasing, and then eventually got into sales. Did that for a number of years, and that was really enjoyed that. And then eventually,
I was going to ask what was like the favorite position?
I think sales. I mean, I think I learned. So being in purchasing, I had such a good. I was on the opposite side of it.
Oh yeah.
So I got to get a little bit of, every type of salesperson knock on my door and, want to sell us something.
Yep.
And so I think I kind of picked up on, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and, how do I not be that person?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, how do I be someone who looks to serve a customer versus trying to sell? And I think that really comes from who you are. And you can hide a lot of things, but you're around enough salespeople to realize that salesperson doesn't have my best interest at heart. It's their best interest. And so I think that was the biggest thing that I picked up. It was like, okay, I need to always have my customers' best interests at heart. And if I do that, whether they buy from us or not, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah. Well, good things happen from that. I mean, you take care of people. And even if they don't do it right away, you could be coming back or referrals. You never know how things are going to happen. But
yeah, I think it's just the right way to do business.
Yeah. It was funny when I started back in 2018. It was the end of the year, and I was just kind of dipping my feet in the water, just going, yeah, I want to try this. I was still working for my kind of corporate job, and
where were you?
KFI Products in Spring Valley.
Okay.
So they're a steel manufacturer.
All right.
I did tech stuff. Well, first I got hired in as a tech and warranty. Got to deal with a lot of angry people on the phone. That was fun. Got to tell them, hey, your thing isn't warranted because you broke it. Mm-hmm. And they loved that. So I got to communicate well. That was fun. But I could have moved into the same thing. I was just raising my hand. I was like, I want to do more. Let's go. So I kind of took on a new website project for him, built out a whole new website. I was doing product photo and video. I was building out manuals, going to trade shows, things like that. So it's fun. I got to do quite a bit. But it was 4 years there, and I kind of hit a ceiling, and they were like, there's nothing really that you can take on anymore. And I was like, man, it sucks to be this young and this hungry and go, well, if you work here the rest of your life, you'll do well. It's like, but I want to keep moving,
Yeah.
So I started this company, and I had a mentor at the time that was just a business owner. He owned a couple Anytime Fitnesses, and it was just a guy I knew, and he was pretty savvy. And I was like, hey, I got questions. And so he's the one that made me pick a date that I quit my full-time job, jump into MediaCore full-time, and that was end of the year. So January 1 of 19, I kind of jumped in. But what I was getting at is we would always sit down, and he's like, you're a pretty good salesperson. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I've never done sales in my life. I've never, any of that stuff. He's like, yeah, but you're just naturally good at it. I'm like, what though? Like, I just like people. Like, I love what I do. I just like people. And he's like, well, that's why. Like, you're a communicator, but you're also you care for the customer, what they're trying to do. And I think that was the big difference, like what you're saying is like, you can tell when someone's out to just, hey, I got to make a quick buck and get this, versus I want to legitimately learn and try to help with, something. If it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, that's totally fine. Maybe it will down the road.
Yeah.
But because I love sales, I do it now all the time.
Yeah.
And, but it really is, to me, it's just taking care of, who you're working with. So yeah. So you kind of shifted into the president role. How did you kind of develop yourself into becoming a leader, leading this company? Now you're taking it forward. How'd that come about?
Yeah, I should give a lot of credit in a handful of places, but The Air Force, I thought, did a really nice job of helping me understand, when I was really young, what good structure and good leadership looks like. So I flew on the C-130 as a flight engineer for many years, and so I got to be around really good teams and really good crews. So when you're inside the C-130, you have a lot going on all the time. And you have certain timelines that you need to hit. You might be dropping a piece of equipment or people, but your timeline starts all the way back when you first show up.
Yeah.
And we all have a job to do. We all have a role inside that aircraft.
Yeah.
And so, inside of a C-130, you've got 5, the minimum, you got about 5 crew members. So you got a pilot, who's the aircraft commander, you got a co-pilot, you got your flight engineer, and you have you've got your load master, and you have your navigator.
Yep.
So the 5 of you could have 2 load masters in the back, but the 5 of you've got to work together. We all have a job, we have a role. And so you learn through either stressful situations or whatnot. Things change all the time. Things don't go as planned.
Right.
And I got to witness being a part of those teams on how do we communicate. I've had good aircraft commanders, not so good aircraft commanders, and you start to, okay, I like how this person, handles the team,
Right.
how they lead and direct. How do I fit in? Because at times I need to step up and lead, those sorts of things. And so I've always loved that team environment. That's how I've always looked at and approached leadership. Is it's really a team, right? We're trying to accomplish something here, and however we get there is however we get there. And we just have different roles inside the organization, and that's how I approach, I guess, the sign company as well. I have what I need to do for the business and everyone else across the board. So it's not, well, Joel's more important than others. It's not what it's about. It's about our mission. It's about what we're trying to do. And if we're focused on that, then we're focusing on the right things.
And how do we do that as a whole,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the challenge.
Yep.
So I started there with the Air Force. So I got to have a lot of opportunities and a lot of growth in that area. And then I just read a ton.
Okay. Yeah.
My father-in-law was always a big proponent of reading and improving yourself. So I had a really unique advantage to really start learning from him and understanding, okay, how does he tick? How does he do things? I think he's one of the best people who embodies servant leadership. It's something that we've always been passionate about. Actually, locally in town in La Crosse, Viterbo University they have a servant leadership MBA program, and so
Interesting.
Yeah, they're it's really big in our La Crosse area.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from him, and then just read a ton of books because you kind of are what you listen to, who you hang around with, and I don't know. That's it.
It's interesting now because you have so many books now. You have so many podcasts, so many people that are on YouTube speaking, and it's. Do you have to be careful with who you choose to listen to and learn from? Because there's so many people out now doing it and saying, "No, this is the way," and "No, this is the way," and that's what I find is I got to be really particular with who I'm consuming information from because I feel like it's just such a busy market right now for that.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has their flavor on it, if you will, and I've found a handful of authors that really resonate with me with how I look at things, and often what I'll do is I'll reread the same book again because whatever I'm lacking or whatever I need to improve upon with my own leadership, it's usually I probably know it and have forgotten about it, or maybe I was doing it and I stopped doing it, those sorts of things. So I think for me, I have to just keep reminding myself and listening to the same things. And there's always new material you need to be taking in.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's wisdom, right? Filtering through, okay, what do I want to listen? What fits with the character of who I am, like
Right.
what's true to me, and then what kind of world and do I want to create around me.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you feel that same way.
Yeah. No, 100%. I was going to ask you what are some of the top books that you enjoy?
Yeah, I would say the biggest book that had the most impact on me was 7 Habits of
Okay.
Highly Effective People.
Yep.
And that's a book that I'll reread every year.
Mm.
And that one just, when I was younger, I read it and I'm like, man, this is so impactful. It really changed how I thought about myself. Because that's where it starts. Leadership starts with yourself. How well am I leading myself?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started with 7 Habits. And then from there, I started reading books on, business and those sorts of things. And I like a lot of what Patrick Lencioni does.
Yep.
I like how he approaches leadership. I think it's really good. But yeah, I mean, listen to a lot, and
Yeah.
maybe some I didn't like, and
Yep.
I'm sure
Yep.
you understand. You're like, I probably won't listen to that one again or
Right.
read that one again. But
So when were you introduced to EOS?
yeah, so we implemented EOS about 4 years ago. It was I was in this transition period where I was kind of selling. Well, I was selling primarily, but I was also in leadership meetings. So we were kind of building EOS, but I really didn't have a official title or role inside leadership inside the company. But so we started rolling it out 4 years ago, and it's been great for our business. It puts language and process around what we know we should all be doing,
Yep.
like setting 90-day goals for the company, meeting one-on-one with our individual team members. It defines who does what inside the organization. What is most organizations have number 1 and number 2 for the most part.
Yep.
Some organizations just have a number 1 and that's it. But what are those 2 people at top going to be? I mean, you can call them a CEO, COO, president, vice president. But what are those 2 going to do? What are they going to be responsible for? How are they going to work together?
Yep.
I think that relationship is so important. You got to have that right, and you got to be on the same page, and then you can bring that organization forward. Again, coming from the Air Force, top down,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so once that's right, I think it's good. And then you got cadence of meetings. You create better teamwork inside of your organization, and everybody has a voice. We're all speaking the same language, same values. I just think it's been really good for us. But you guys are rolling it out right now, right?
Well, we're starting to very beginnings of
Yeah.
the self implementation. I was going to ask, did you guys bring in somebody to help?
We did.
you-
He wasn't like I don't believe he was an official implementer.
Yeah.
But he was familiar with material,
Yeah.
and he had kind of advised the business from time to time. And so, yeah, we did have someone come in from the outside and help us.
Would you recommend that, like an outsider, or is it not needed?
I know it all depends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends on what you have in the building.
Yep.
I mean, the positives of an implementer would be you got someone who's going to hold you accountable to rolling it out. We have friends in the industry. Someone's rolling it out right now, and he's doing it through an implementer. And I would say he's probably implementing it faster than he probably would on his own. So you're going to gain speed for sure. And but it's just a matter of doing it.
Yep.
It's like anything else.
That's most things.
It's like just dive
Yeah.
in. You're not going to get rocks right away, which is your 90-day priorities. You're not going to have a great one-on-one the first time you have one. You're going to fumble around with what are our core values? What are we about as a business? All that stuff is going to take time to figure out. But the sooner you do it, I mean, the sooner you can get better at it.
Yep. Do you go through like variations of it and just do you continually change, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I would say like our core values and our mission and vision don't change.
Okay.
But you're setting a 1-year picture, a 3-year target, and then
Yeah.
a 10-year. Right? I'm not sure if I use the right verbiage, but 1 year, 3-year, and a 10-year plan for the business. And that's always changing because the market's always changing. Customer priorities are always changing, so you're always shifting those things. But who you are as a business, that shouldn't change. Of course, how you do business is always going to change. So yeah, you're shifting those things. But from my perspective, once you've decided on who you are, what you're about, just stick to that.
Yep.
And then how are you going to accomplish it? That's that
Right.
ever a changing, ever evolving piece that you're constantly working on.
Okay. I like that. And I feel like it's also like the accountability piece, like it gives you something to look back on and reflect on and go, hey, are we in line with what we're saying we're doing, or this happened? How do we approach this? Well, let's look back to the way we operate and make decisions. And
yeah, scorecard is so huge. I love that. We have a weekly scorecard, and every company's going to have their different scorecard, different metrics, but you're looking at that every week of...
Is that for the business or for people?
For the business.
Okay.
So we have a handful of things. So for your corporate level team, you have a corporate level team. So that would be, your operations, whoever's in charge of your operations. For us, sales team, accounting, all the cross-functional teams get together once a week, and you're meeting on really high-level things. That's what you should be meeting on and talking through. But yeah, you might, maybe it's revenue, maybe it's billings. It's different for every business what they're focusing on. But you have a scorecard, and everyone reports in on their department and how they're doing, and you got green or red. Like, are we hitting our targets or are we not? You got your to-dos, right? So you're logging all your to-dos. Hey, and when you're going through your to-dos, it's not, well, we kind of done this. It's like, no, it's either done or it's not, and so that's a great accountability piece. And again, it's accountable. I'm accountable to it. Everybody's accountable to the organization. Did Joel do what he said he was going to do? Yes or no?
Right.
And then same thing. And then you kind of IDS it at the end there. So you have identify, discuss, solve as a group. So you might bring up issues or opportunities inside the business. Hey, is there a new opportunity or is there an issue we need to discuss and solve? And you solve that together as a team. And from that discussion, you might generate to-dos from that. It could be a larger issue, so you might generate a 90-day rock around that original issue. But it keeps you documenting and moving along of moving the business on, and hopefully keep us away from flavor of the month, and keep us consistent on where we're going and how we're going to get there. But
how is it received from the team? You're starting to bring it in 4 years ago. Was it a big shift? Did people jump on board right away, or was it like a process of getting everyone kind of bought into the system and kind of how you do things?
Yeah, it was a process. I think people were excited. You probably had a mixed feelings around, here, something else again, how that can
What are they
go.
calling this one?
Yeah. And so, but you prove it by being consistent.
Yep.
And now I feel like we're at a place where what we did is we went to the organization, when we went to our core values, we had like 12 of them or 13 of them, and no one really knew them. And, why do we have core values? Well, because we got to have core values,
Yep.
And it probably meant more for the top level leadership than it did throughout the organization. And so we actually brought it down to them, and it's like, hey, let's put normal language around what we're about, and then had everyone participate. So it wasn't just us deciding this is what we're about. It was truly all of us deciding what we're about. So I think if you do that right away, I think you're going to get a lot of buy-in with everyone, is because everybody wants to show up and contribute and do their absolute best. And if you allow them to participate in something like that, I think that's a good thing.
How do you structure a meeting like that?
Around
You just say, hey, let's all come up with some ideas and we narrow it down from there?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah. I think you may talk with a good way to do it is maybe talk to your customer base. How do they experience you?
Interesting.
Because we have an idea of who we are.
Right.
But our customers are always honest. So who are we truly? And then I think it's a mix of who we are and then what we're trying to be. What do we aspire to be? So for us, we put it around Lacrosse Sign Group makes a statement. So that's leading with a commitment to excellence, supportive of one another, win or lose, grateful every day, mindful of our actions, adaptable to change, and then safety is a top priority. We wanted to throw safety in there because we are an inherently risky business with large boom trucks and manufacturing. You worked in manufacturing, so safety was definitely something that we're like, okay, we want safety to be a pillar of our business. But yeah, so that's how we came about it. And so,
like it.
Do we always lead well? Do I always lead well? Well, the answer is no, I don't. But I strive to. I really strive to. Mindfulness, that's probably, I'm terrible at that, and you're always going over 1,000 different things. You're forgetful, or how you show up in a room, all these sorts of things. And so I'd always probably give myself a knock on that one. But yeah.
Yeah, I like
I'd
that.
say that's.
So one of the one of the challenges I guess that I've had with some of this is maybe like our team size. We have 8 full-time and 1 part-time guy. I believe, recently. So, how we structure that too is like, certain like the L10s, things like that. Like, well, there isn't necessarily, a head of every department yet,
Right.
but there are people that are in each department.
Yeah.
So do you just kind of hybrid it a little bit and go, hey, like it doesn't have to be the leaders of these, but hey, you're involved in this department and we're a small enough team, we're just going to bring you in on these? Or is it the conversations that Jake and I need to be having and then broken off into kind of the departments that we oversee?
Where do you think you should go?
That's a good question.
Where are you leaning?
Well, right now we've kind of done a little bit of both. I think some of the challenges that we're facing when we bring everybody in is perspective. How I see something operating as a leader, as an owner, someone that's worked through all the departments and has done everything. I'm looking at this different than somebody that only does this thing, do it really well, but they're not looking at it kind of as, as well-rounded. But so I don't know. So then some of the ideas are like, well, yeah, but you didn't think about this, and this, so that, yeah, we want that, but, so I don't know. I think that's been more of my challenges. Because we want people involved. We want them involved with ideas and taking ownership of their stuff and developing people to be leaders. But yeah, I guess that's been kind of the challenge.
Whether you break it out or whether you do it all as a group. My thought would be, so we have 70 employees.
Okay.
And we have varying teams. But I would think with a group of about 8, in my mind, it makes sense that you guys would meet all at once and go over what you're going to, go over mission, vision, values, and those sorts of things. To me, that would make sense. I'm not sure how exactly that works. You have,
because we kind of like
thinking through it, you probably have
our departments are like kind of like our sales,
Yep.
which is me and Jimmy that primarily do that.
Yep.
We have production, which is Jake, Dakota, Noah, and Damien. And then we have marketing, which is myself and Joe. And then Adam's kind of the intern. We also have a guy that kind of helps with marketing as well, just part-time. But
yeah.
so it's, do we break him up like, oh, well, here, you're involved with this, and then Jake and I just sit on all of them, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think right away, it would make sense just to have one meeting
One meeting.
a week.
Okay.
I don't know your business
Yeah.
at all.
No, it's good.
But as I look at it, would be one meeting a week, and you'd have sales numbers that you're trying to hit.
Yep.
So you and Jimmy would, report in on how you're doing. Could be pipeline amounts. It could be varying things. However you're going to measure success. And then your production folks, I'm sure there's timelines and whatnot to make sure things get done, so they can report in on what they're measuring as what success looks like. And then I always think it's valuable, and it depends on how much you want to share, but I think it's valuable showing where we're at for the year, as far as, what size.
Yeah, we usually do that.
Yeah, billing that out. So you could put that in there as well. How much are we billing out? Those sorts of things. And obviously it's up to you as to how much you want to share. But to me, as I think about it, I mean, that would be the scorecard. Whatever marketing efforts you might have, if you're spending in different areas, what is that spend returning? I don't know if it's Google or if it's whatever it could be.
Yeah. Kind of the metrics that we're tracking and how it's
Yeah, so I would think that would work. And then I don't know how the org structure works. It's you and your brother, right? And you're kind of the sales, marketing. You're the visionary, and he's the integrator, I think.
For the most part, he doesn't like the title.
You guys are working through it.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I would think, as far as the operations of it, let him take care of that, and then you stay in what you need to stay in, and let that person stay in what they need to stay in, because everybody has a unique gift. And
I mean, when you think of a visionary and an integrator, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think there's a really good book called Rocket Fuel.
Rocket Fuel, yeah.
And so that kind of defines it out. But
so go read that.
Go read that. But I guess from my perspective, your visionary is, which I don't love the title either, but it's just what they call it, is your high level, where are we going, outside the box thinker, probably a little more disruptive force in the company, trying to find things that are, what's broken inside the business that we need to fix. It could be a handful of things. And then your integrator is, okay, how are we going to integrate all this to make it actually work?
Right.
And they're more the implementer, more your day-to-day type person. So that's kind of how I look at it in that way. And usually, your visionary kind of sits in the sales. What I've seen, they kind of sit in that sales marketing avenue.
Yeah.
And then your integrator usually sits in the
More
production side, operations side. And it doesn't mean you guys can't collaborate.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that your integrator doesn't have novel ideas or things that they can bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I took the test. I forget what it was called, but and I was more of a visionary. I think it was like 79. I think 80 is like their threshold. But it was like, heavier on the visionary side, but I wasn't a full blown and when I was going through with people, they were like, well, probably because you had to be both for a long time. It's like I had to plan and think and go, hey, this is where we need to go, but then I can't just leave it at that. I had to go, well, how are we actually going to get there? Because this is just a pipe dream unless we can, put something behind it. So I think that's been part of it too, is like I haven't been able to fully go, because I feel like that's what I enjoy doing. What gives me the most energy is going, I want to think big. I want to go, hey, make the connections with people, the opportunities, and then just keep moving that thing forward. But at the same time, I also got to help make sure that it's getting done. That's when I look at entrepreneurship, business owners, things like that. There's a lot of just people up in the clouds, and they're dreamers. And when the internet paints a picture of you can make as much money as you want and have as much free time as you want and do all that. It's like, oh, that's attractive. Like, oh, and then I want to do this and this and this, but it never becomes anything.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that person where I was just like, oh, this would be so cool. It's like, you would do it. How are you going to do it though? You know, it's like, well, I don't know. Later, I'll figure that out later. I was like, well, you got to go. That's like the biggest part, you know? So I thought that was always interesting. And I think I saw enough of it and I'm like, I can't be that person that just says it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not how for me, that's not how I look at that, you know, maybe that visionary role. Like, you know, at the end of the day, we still need to get things done.
Right.
And so I think both titles can sometimes have some sort of negative connotation to them.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the visionary is just, you know, chasing some red ball down the street, you know, or whatever new ideas down the street. But, I mean, with anything else, I mean, you got to be disciplined. You gotta actually execute, and that doesn't advocate you from following through, and you know, maybe bringing an idea with some like data behind it and why it might work. Right. Things like that. So I'm 100% with you because, yeah, I would always, I was a very creative personality. Yeah. And so, yeah, you start to learn as you mature and grow that, like, well, it's good to be creative. It's sure a heck a lot better to actually do something about it and accomplish it. So, yeah, I think that just comes down to character and discipline around it. It's my perspective.
Yeah. How do you guys develop people internally? Because that's something too that we just, you know, you hear it all the time. You know, you got to be growing your team, developing your people, doing this and that. It's like, you know, how to best do that though, you know? Yeah. What do you guys do for Lacrosse Sign Group?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, we could always do better. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. I think if you'd asked any business, it'd be like, well, yeah, we do this and this on development, but, you know, we'd sure like to do more than that. So I think it's a 50-50 proposition. So I can want to develop people inside an organization, but that person that has to have that hunger and the drive to do it themselves as well. So I think it's giving people opportunity and not trying to have everything run through me or me do it, but I think it's looking for people who show promise and show that, hey, you know, they want to learn, they want to grow. Like you were talking about when you were working, you know, prior to Media Corps, you were just, hey, I'll do it. Hey, I'll do it. Hey, I'll do it. And I'm sure whoever's leading you at the time was like, hey, Josh is someone that I can trust. He's always stepping up. He's always, you know, doing those sorts of things. But so I think it's trying to identify opportunities for the people. And if I can do it, it's real world stuff, not, you know, like make believe stuff. Like, hey, there's going to be a site visit with a customer, maybe one of my customers I still work with. Well, I know what needs to happen on that site visit, but wouldn't it be better if I took one of the younger folks who shows promise and is a hard worker and maybe prep them and make sure they're prepared for that meeting and then allow them to succeed or fail. Obviously, you got to be careful with that. But I don't know. I think about those sorts of things, giving opportunity for people to learn on their own. I mean, that's how I'm sure you learned, is someone gave you an opportunity, a responsibility of like, hey, this is your responsibility now. You know, you need to execute and make sure it gets done right. So there's that. But then I think just, you know, you can do book club at your organization of maybe you read a really good book. It's like, hey, guys, we're going to do book club. I read whatever I read, and it really meant a lot to me. And so it's investing, giving people time to read and learn and grow and those sorts of things. And then there's also, that's more of the soft skills. That's more of those sorts of things. But on the hard skill side of things, you know, there's different programs inside our industry that we can give access to people, whether it's, you know, education at a tech school or whatever it might be, to increase those individual skills. but maybe learning like CAD or something like
Yeah.
that. You can give people opportunities to do those things. So I think you got to blend it with a little bit of both, but I think you start to identify, and I'm sure you have identified in your business of, hey, I see this person or that person, and I see something that is different than most people. Let's give them an opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Well, I like the 50-50 though. I think that's, you can want the world for somebody, but unless they're, ready to take that step up and do it, it's not going to really go far at all.
Yeah, and just because they're not there today, they might mature in a year, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I got to give this person an opportunity. It's prove it by your behavior.
Right. Yeah, I think some of the letting go too, and that almost that trial by fire. That could be hard. When you got a certain reputation or something. And you guys have that too. But it's like you got to let people try. And do that. But that's I don't know. That's hard. Sometimes I'm like, man, like we can't mess this up.
No,
it's got to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I look at it as I go back to our core value of supportive of one another, win or lose. So we're not always going to win. We're going to lose sometimes. We're going to make mistakes. But I think it's important to have an environment that supports people even when they don't do the right thing or they make a mistake or whatever. I mean, we are imperfect people in an imperfect world running an imperfect business. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we're striving to be excellent.
Yep.
But that's the fact of the matter. So I think you got to give some people some grace. Where's that grace and accountability? You got to have both. But that's how I approach it. Mm-hmm. That's how I look through it.
Yeah.
But
I like that. Yeah. So when you look at the Crosse Sign Group as a whole, where are you guys going in the future? What does that look like? How do you keep progressing?
Yeah, I think for us it's how do we provide additional resource and help for our customers where they need it. So we've always strived to be a truly turnkey business for our customers. So whether it's having in-house graphic designers, in-house manufacturing, in-house installers, and all that expertise in-house, it makes for a better experience. This year we acquired an electrician, so now we'll hopefully start incorporating electrical services inside of our core business. So I think anything that we can do to make it truly turnkey for our customers you can come to La Crosse and we can take care of you start to finish. Because it happens in our industry, and I'm sure if others are listening in the industry, it happens all the time where yep, my sign went up. It's like, well, we're not electricians. We can't pull wire.
Right.
And so sometimes that piece, if it's not communicated well, can be missing and lacking. So I think long term for us, just looking to create more of that great experience for our customers. And then if there's growth opportunities, we're always open for that, whether organic or through acquisition. We would definitely be open to that, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I like when businesses, through either starting it or through acquisition, start to develop these different business units that support one another. Hey, like we bring an electrician because, yes, they could do this other stuff and, still be a business that makes money doing these things, but it supports this really nicely and it lets us do these things. And so, I like that. And that's what you see a lot of different times when you're looking around at companies that continue to grow and progress. It's like, well, now they own this thing that kind of supports this, but also does, its own thing. And now I like that,
Yeah.
How do you, and it really is like, how do you serve your customer best?
Yep. I think that's the question you got to keep asking yourself. How do I serve my customers? I think that you hit it on the head right there.
Because we probably, end of last year, we polled our clients And it was just, how do we continually improve? We're trying to get better. We're excited to grow. We're hungry. How do we do this? And we just wanted the feedback. And I think feedback's great to got to approach it humbly and go, how can we legitimately serve you guys better, do this better? And they were saying that, our process is fun, it's easy, it's hands off. They like that. They like the videos themselves. And I was like, oh, great, we're doing a great job. And then, well, we don't really get enough help on the back end. And I was like, I did not see that coming. And it was, I felt bad. I'm like, man, are we doing a disservice by not supporting them after the fact? And because that's not why we necessarily got into business, was to try to be an agency and do all this stuff, helping them, market and use their videos, more as the content side. But is that what we need to become? Do we need to have these additional services that are helping our clients roll these videos out, train them on how to use it properly, show them the 6 different ways that they didn't even think about that could be benefiting what their ultimate goal and mission was of why they did it in the first place?
Yep.
And that's kind of been like the progression this year is, all these different ways that we can support through the back end, so it doesn't feel like great. And then we posted it and we got a ton of good feedback and things. And now what? Now what do we do? And then if we don't show any attention, it's just like, and then it just faded,
Yeah.
Well, I don't want that. I want you to be using this for years,
Yeah.
So it's been interesting, kind of just, again, figuring out different ways where we can provide that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's going to fully become, if we're just going to help educate and inform and come alongside, or if it's going to be, hey, for those that don't want to do it, we'll take that on.
Yeah.
But that's what it was all about. It's just like, how do we serve our customers better? And that was like the key thing that we were missing. And that's, we would have never known. I would have never seen that coming if we didn't go back and ask people.
Yeah.
Because that's what we thought. We're like, we're the best, this. Our videos are better than everyone. Our process is easier. This is fun. Everyone loves us. And then, 6 months down the road, we don't know what we're doing now with this thing. It's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Didn't think of that. Didn't see that. So it's cool.
Yeah. I always remind myself, because every business you're in, it's like, yeah, man, we sure are great. We love us. But, your customers are going to tell you the truth. And they're going to tell you where you're lacking. And I always remind myself, okay, if we want to be the best, we do what the best do. And if we're not doing what the best are doing, then we're not the best. So how do we daily work on that continuous improvement of being the best?
Right.
Yeah. But I think always asking that question, being curious is huge. And not just saying well, we sure know how to do everything. It's like, well, maybe we don't.
Right.
Maybe we need to ask more questions about our process. Does our process really work well for us, or does it work well for our customers? So I think that's it.
That's
push pull.
Yeah, I love the ever learning, just continual learning, being a sponge. You read enough where you that's a pretty clear indicator of somebody that's going to go in a bad direction, is when they know everything and nope, this is how we do it. I know it.
Yep.
Blah blah blah. And it's like, that's a red flag.
Yeah, it is a red flag. Yeah. That's kind of in my opinion, it's a life principle.
Yeah.
You take that into business. You can take that into your marriage, your family, whatever it is you're passionate about. I love to golf.
Yeah.
So, maybe how I approached the game a year or two ago, I'm going to approach it differently. Maybe I'll work on this or that, and you're always tweaking something, doing something, if you're going to have a healthy marriage, right? You got to be checking with your spouse. Hey, I feel like we're doing good. Are we doing good?
Yeah.
You getting what you need from me? Am I doing what I committed to doing, in this marriage? And so, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I recently did I think I might have told you I was part of that C12 group.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you looked into that at all, but I just had my CBP, which is my core business presentation. And it was really it's a chance for me to, again, present to the group. This is who we are as a company. Here are my 2 big questions that I want to bring to the group to get feedback on. But part of that process was the 360 review. And I like that because it's kind of like well, when do you get reviewed? Like who you're at the top, but who keeps, you in check? And it's kind of interesting because, that group then interview our team. So they interviewed 3 people on our team, plus your spouse. So they met with my wife, and it's
Wow.
like, and you got to be fine with that, obviously. And it's all, people know they can't share stuff, but it's interesting because that's where you see and you get that feedback and you see the blind spots. And this is my 2nd year doing that process. And again, I'm pretty self-aware. Like I know what I'm bad at. I know what I'm good at. Still, I always get surprised at something. And I'm like, dang, didn't see that. Okay, I can improve now.
Yeah.
But it's a cool process because I think everyone needs to have that person, that group, whatever it is, that kind of keeps you in check yourself too.
Yeah. How does that information get presented to you then? Is it like a report?
Yeah, so they'll take notes and they give you the notes, but they typically, the 2 people that interviewed everyone will go and they'll meet with you and they'll give feedback of, hey, these are all the great things that's going on in your organization, and this is what this person was saying, these things were, and some of it's discussion. But everyone knows. I mean, they're doing it out of a place of love. They're trying to help. They're trying to help you, your company, your people, your marriage.
Yeah.
But it's I always look forward to it. I don't know. Some people might not, but I'm like, I think it was funny. The C12 chair, his name's Ben, and we were having our one-on-one for the month, and he's like, bring the blind spot question to the group, but be ready. I was like, what do you mean be ready? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, just be ready. If anyone's bringing up what blind spots are, it can be, you just got to do it from a place of humility and not, try to answer for your actions or something like that. But it was just, it was a fun process because, again, I feel like I'm relatively sharp, and I'm like, I know where my pitfalls are. But I mean, I love learning, so it's just like, sure, let's do it, and it was good.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
having those peer groups are so valuable. So valuable. Yeah, those are nice. I had my one-on-one this morning.
Okay.
So that was a good one. So a lot of good things.
Well, one of the last things too that I wanted to kind of ask you, we have a wide listener base, but most of it's kind of in the 5 states, and I would say in general people are looking to grow, looking to get better. They're in business, they're starting a company at different stages and levels, but I always like to ask, what are some things that maybe core things that you've learned along your journey that you could pass along to somebody listening that's going, I'm trying to make something happen, get better. So I like to ask you, what have you learned?
Yeah, I'm fairly young, and so I don't know if I have the wealth of knowledge or wisdom that others would have, but I think it's kind of what we've been talking about this whole time of you just touched on it. You're constantly looking for ways of how can I improve. I think it's a better way to live. I think if you have an imbalance, you're going to be a happier person because you're constantly looking for, okay, what can I do? Start with myself. things I can control. Not everything else that's going on outside. I can't control that. I can only control how my proactiveness, how I react to situations, positive or negatively. That's what I can control. So how can I get better? I think is exactly what you touched on that I would suggest, and then just be eager to learn. Just be eager to learn, and don't be afraid, to be wrong or trip over yourself or whatever. It's one of the mentors I had is early on. I was like 23 or 24, and I was in a group, like a networking group, in a big room, right? And it's intimidating. I'm young, and what do I know? Nothing. And there was someone else who was older than me, and he was, working the room and just great. I'm like, how does he do this?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I asked him afterwards. I said, why are you the way he is? He's like, well, Joel, everyone in this room is thinking the same thing you're thinking, and I'm thinking the same thing. I just choose to engage. And I thought, that's wise. And so I think getting past that fear and just engaging in whatever it is. It might not be a big room of people.
Right.
It might be something else, that you're maybe tentative on or afraid of. But just realizing that those are natural thoughts. You're going to think those things, but you got to choose to engage for yourself and step up. And so, I don't know.
I like that. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Joel, it's been a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. And, just thanks again. And I'm excited to continue following, seeing what you guys are doing. And, just excited for the future.
Thank you.
So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it out. We're trying to continue to build a community, trying to get some cool people on here to talk about their experiences, things they've learned, and really just provide value to you, the listener. We're excited to keep growing this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.